In this lesson, you will learn about the application of writing equations. Let's take a look at some examples. When writing equations for real-life situations, there are two types of formats of the equations that you can use. One, which you've learned about in a previous lesson, is standard form. Another one is slope-intercept form. Some of the things you look for when you're trying to identify which format to use for your equation would be, in the first one, for standard form, if the problem gives you the total cost or amount, then you use standard form. The C represents the standard form. However, if the total cost is not given, then typically your equation is written in slope-intercept form. You will see over on the side here that the Y in slope-intercept form stands for the total cost. The M is the slope, and in a real-life situation, this is the number or amount that will change depending on what the X is. The B, or the Y-intercept, is the number that will not change, or is a fixed amount. So again, remember that standard form will be used when the total cost or amount is given. Slope-intercept form is used when the total cost is not given. So let's take a look at some examples and write equations for these problems. In this first problem, it states that a rental company charges $12 per hour for a jet ski plus $5 for an insurance fee. So we want to decide, first of all, which equation will we use? Will it be standard form? Or will it be slope-intercept form? Now just to remind you, standard form requires that you know the total cost or amount of whatever it is the problem is talking about. Slope-intercept form, usually the total cost is not given. So in reading this problem, would you say the total cost is given or is not given? Hopefully you said there was no total cost given. So therefore we should write our equation in slope-intercept form. And if you read the next question or sentence, it does say write an equation in slope-intercept form because the total cost is not given. So how do we do that? Well, Y is the total cost, which we do not know. And it mentioned that the M, or the slope, is the amount that changes. So which amount changes depending on the X, which in this case would be the hours that you rent the skis for. Could the 12 hours go up or change, or would the $5 change? That would be the $12, which is the M, or the slope. So the total cost would equal $12 times X, and X represents the number of hours that you rent the jet ski for. Plus, you will also have to pay a $5 insurance fee. So this would be the equation that you would use as you're calculating what your total cost would be, depending on how many hours you rent the jet ski for. Now let's move down and answer the next question. So the next question says, what would be the cost of renting the jet ski for 4 hours plus the insurance? So the hours is the X. So if you replace the X with 4, you're saying that your total cost equals $12 times the 4 hours you're going to rent the jet skis for, plus the $5 insurance fee. So we want to know Y, or the total cost. So if you multiply 12 times 4, the cost of just the hourly fee for renting the jet ski is $48. Plus, you need to pay the insurance fee. So your total cost, or Y, would be $48 plus $5, which would be a total of $53. Now let's take a look at example 2. Example B states, Madison ordered candy for the kids in her class. The treats cost $3 per bag, and there is a shipping fee per order. She ordered 8 bags, and her total cost is $29. So again, you first want to decide, will I write my equation in standard form or slope-intercept form? Well, it seems like since there's a total cost given, that we would be using standard form. So it depends on what the rest of the question is asking. So let's move on. So it says here, what was the shipping fee? And the shipping fee would be the y-intercept, because recall that the y-intercept is the amount that is a fixed amount or doesn't change. And the shipping fee per order will be a set amount. So in this case, we don't know the shipping fee. So the question is, can we find it? Well, let's see. We know the total cost is $29. So what is that $29 based on? It is based on the fact that you're going to pay $3 per bag. And it shows that you purchased or ordered 8 bags. So we're going to pay $3 per bag, and we bought 8 bags. We also are going to pay a shipping fee, and we don't know what that is. So let's just put that as a B, or the y-intercept. So we know that $29 is how much we ended up paying. We know we paid $3 per bag when we ordered 8 bags, so that's $24. So the question is, in order to have a total of $29, what would that shipping fee have to be? Now most of you could figure that 24 plus $5 would give you that 29. So B, or the shipping fee, is $5. Now notice we really did not use standard form for this problem. So there will be times, depending on what information you're actually looking for, when the total is given to help you find the y-intercept or even the slope, but you will actually not be using standard form. But you'll see in a moment where standard form becomes obvious. Let's move down a moment and look at the next question in this particular problem. Okay, now it says to write an equation in slope-intercept form to represent this total cost. So again, slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. Now, when they're asking you to do this, they want you to write an equation that you could use no matter how many bags you order. So this is assuming you don't know the total cost and you don't know the number of bags. So the y and the x are just variables, meaning they can change depending on how many bags you order. So it's just a general equation that would represent the cost for anyone making this purchase. So again, it would be an equation where we don't have a total cost and we have not decided on the number of bags to order. So what's the cost per bag? No matter who orders it, $3. And now we know the shipping fee is $5. So this equation would be the equation that we would use, because it's $5 per order for the shipping fee and $3 per bag. So we can use this for anyone who wants to make a purchase of these bags. Let's take a look at example C. In example C, it says Kijan scored 2 points his first basketball game and 12 his fourth. Let X represent the game. That's an important thing to underline. That X is the game played, and that Y represents the points scored. So I'm just going to write that in an ordered pair form. The X represents the game played, or the game, and the Y represents the points. And you want to note that when you're reading a problem, because that's going to help you set up your 2 points. So in this problem, it says write the 2 points. So our first point, or the first game they talk about, is the first basketball game. So we'll put a 1. And how many points did Kijan score? 2 points. So that is our first point that we're going to use to represent the situation. Our second point, the X is what? It's the game, which would be the fourth game they talk about, and he scores 12 points. So we were able to take this problem and the information in it and write 2 points. Now from here, we're going to go to the next question, which asks us for the rate of change. So what was the rate of change for his points scored per game, which will be the slope? Now remember, the slope formula is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So if we label the numbers within our ordered pairs, we have x1 and y1 for our first point, and x2 and y2 for our second point. So let's replace the y2 minus y1 with numbers, so it'll be 12 minus 2, as well as the x2 minus x1. Then let's simplify this. So we would have 10 thirds. So 10 thirds is the slope. Then it says, write an equation in slope-intercept form that represents the number of points Kijan scored per game. So let's see how we might do this. If you recall, to write an equation when we're given 2 points, we need to find the slope, which we already did, and then we need to choose one of the 2 points. So let's choose the first point, which would be 1, 2, meaning in the first game, Kijan scored 2 points. And then we're going to use our slope of 10 thirds. We will then plug this information into the point slope formula and solve it for y. So let's scroll down and see what that looks like. So writing the point slope formula, y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Remember that in the point, our 1 is the x1 and our 2 is the y1. So we're going to replace y1, m, and x1 with the 3 values given above. So it would look like this. Y minus 2 equals 10 thirds times x minus 1. Now from here, we could do one of 2 things. We could either distribute the 10 thirds and then clear the fraction, or we could clear the fraction first. Now if you clear the fraction first, because of the parentheses, you only need to multiply the y by the 3, the 2, and then the 10 thirds. You do not multiply anything inside the parentheses by the 3. So what would this look like? If we clear the fraction first, we would have 3y minus 6 equals 10 times x minus 1. Now we could distribute the 10 or multiply the 10 by each term in the parentheses, which would give us 10x minus 10. We would then add 6 to both sides of the equation, giving us 3y equals 10x minus 4. Now let me scroll down for a moment. Okay, now to finish solving for y, we will divide everything by 3. So we get y equals 10 thirds x minus 4 thirds. And this would represent the number of points that Kijan scored per game. Now just to double check to see if it would work, recall that in the first game they said he scored 2 points. Now let's see, if we plugged in a 1 for x and we calculated the right side of the equal sign, this is kind of our check, would it come out to show us that he actually scored 2 points? So let's see. If we replaced the x with 1, that would leave us with 10 thirds minus 4 thirds. Because our fractions have common denominators, we can subtract the numerators, giving us 6 thirds. And if we divide that, we do in fact get 2. So by doing this double check, we can verify that our equation does accurately represent the average number of points Kijan scored per game. Let's take a look at example D. Example D says, Seth drove 168 miles in 3 hours. It took him 5 hours to drive 280 miles. Write an equation in slope-intercept form, that represents the number of miles driven. And again, here's the important part. It tells you that x is the hours, and that y is the number of miles driven. So make a note of that the x is the miles, x is the hours, and y is the number of miles driven, because that will guide you as you write your 2 points. Okay, so what would be one ordered pair? Well, let's see, the first hours they mentioned is 3 hours, and then the miles is 168. That's our first point. The second piece tells us that we have 5 hours, and that 280 miles were driven. So now that we've established our first 2 points, we can then write the equation like we did in the previous example by finding the slope of those 2 points and then plugging in the slope and one of the points into the point-slope formula. So let's take a look at that. Okay, so let's go ahead and write the equation. So first, we need to find the slope using y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. When we substitute in the numbers, we would have 280 minus 168 over 5 minus 3. So what is 280 minus 168? That would be 112. In the denominator, 5 minus 3 is 2. Now if we divide 112 divided by 2, what would we get? 2 goes into 11 5 times, with 1 left over. So it should end up being 56. So 56 is our slope. Let's just make a note of that for later. So now we want to plug the information into the point-slope formula. So we need to first choose a point, and I'm just going to choose the first point. So when we plug it in, it would be y minus y1, which is 168, equals m, or 56, times x minus x1, which is the 3. We will then distribute the 56, which would give us 56x minus 168. From there, we would add the 168, and y would equal 56x. And because negative 168 plus 168 is 0, we do not have to write a y-intercept. Our y-intercept is 0. So our equation is y equals 56x. So what does that mean? Well, that equation tells us, remember, y is the total. So in this case, it would be the total miles. So it would be the total miles that Seth drives when he's at 56 times the number of hours. So that would be the miles per hour. That would be his average speed, the 56. So let's go ahead and use that equation to answer. Okay, so in this question it says, how many miles did Seth drive after 8 hours? So we would replace the x, because the x represents the hours, with 8. And if we multiply 56 times 8, what would we get? 448 miles. So again, Seth would be able to use this equation to calculate his number of miles depending on how many hours he plans on driving. And that completes the lesson on the application of writing equations.